Hey, everybody, and happy Tuesday. It's Rebecca Wetteman here. Welcome to the Crunch. It is sadly just me today. Patrick is on vacation, but he sends his love to all of you, and thank you all for joining. He did provide me with a few questions for our guest for the end of the show, so he'll be here in spirit anyway. It's a short week this week, obviously in the States with Memorial Day. I hope everybody had a great holiday. We did certainly here. It's also a really interesting time, obviously, in the space. Salesforce announces earnings tomorrow, so it'll be interesting to see sort of what they say and how the market responds. Zoom was last week, I think, and Workday as well. So really interesting commentary on what's happening with the SaaS apocalypse, with AI skepticism, and what we really expect with all the economic and other uncertainty for things to play out over the next couple of quarters. But certainly one of the things that's been really clear in our research is that the AI FOMO, fear of messing up, is real. And as we look across the board at customers from whether it's the hyperscalers, the CCaaS providers, the CRM folks, or the standalone players, people trying to put agentic AI into the field, what we're finding is that it's not necessarily the technology that's holding them back, but the fear that AI is either going to sort of run rogue in the middle of the night and do a bunch of deleterious things, or that it's going to run a big LLM bill or a token bill without the business benefits to show for it. And so I think what we've seen as a result is people hesitating to move things from pilots into production, but also looking at what are those use cases that are about providing information rather than actually taking action in a particular way. Now, the real promise of agentic AI, right, is the ability to take action, whether it's changing an order for me, rescheduling a flight, those sort of things where the agent doesn't just serve up information, but actually does something, actually closes out the need of a customer or an employee. So I'm really excited to have our guest here today to talk about how Genesys and their work with Ava is doing just that. That is helping companies move from information with AI to actually action. So I'm delighted to have Rahul here from Genesys to talk about it. Rahul, hi.
Hi, how's it going?
Happy Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. Yeah, it is afternoon, and I just realized it was Tuesday after you said it was Tuesday. I've been under.
It's funny you say that. I was talking with Brent earlier about how everybody kind of feels like today is a Monday, given that we have a short week. I will admit that it felt a little like Monday this morning when I got going. But glad you got your calendar aligned and you were able to join us. Thanks.
Yeah, glad to be here.
So you and I talked a couple of weeks ago about sort of what Genesys was doing in this space and how it seems like most of the agentic providers, if we look at kind of across the board today, their customers are using this stuff for serving up information rather than actually taking action. And part of that has been, it's been really hard to kind of be sure that AI was actually going to take the action we want it to take.
Yeah, like I think there's a lot of promise in agentic that people are seeing, right? And you see every week Claude and Anthropic kill some companies' stock valuation every Friday afternoon when they release something.
Right.
One of the things, we hear from our customers all the time is, do you have agentic AI? And we say yes, and ask them what do they want it to do. They're like, I want it to answer all my FAQ. I'm like, that's not really agentic AI, right? That's RAG at the long term, right? And then a lot of other customers I talk to, that they're looking at the problem the right way, right? They're saying, I have an influx of volume. I don't know how to handle it, and I can't afford to just keep hiring people.
Yeah.
Right. So the value of AI is really, how do I make sure that customers are getting serviced at the right level quickly and with the right information, right? I can't afford for AI to go rogue and hallucinate, right, and make decisions. We've seen what happens when that happens,
right?
And that's what we spend a lot of our time, right? Like, we spend time trying to make sure what we're building helps our customers, and drives value to them and gives them more ROI immediately versus a long-term project.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're absolutely right about customers being afraid. And we've also heard the news stories of sort of the AI agents that go off in the night and delete code or change prices or allow refunds or all the kind of prompt injection stuff, or just hallucination and confabulation stuff that can get LLMs into trouble. Can you talk a little bit about kind of Genesys approach and how the large action model works?
Yeah. So LLMs are really good at generating text, right? They're meant to understand language and figure out what the next response is. Where they struggle is picking the right action, right? And you could see this, I'm assuming most folks here use some version of an AI assistant, whether it's ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini, but it's really kind of biased to trying to please you, right? Like I'll be like, hey, what do you think of this? And that's a great idea. And it's like, no, it's not. That was a terrible idea. And so you see that day in, day out, right? And that push for so when somebody asks it a question, right, the LLM is kind of biased towards a great ideas or trying to help please the end user. Right. And what an LAM is biased towards is action, right? So the LAM isn't there to generate a lot of conversational text. It has capabilities to do that, but it's really centered around a task, right? So the way we train LAMs is not intent and utterances. We train it with, these are the different tools that are available to you. And these are the steps you follow to execute this tool, right? So imagine you want to make a date change to your payment. Right, you need to gather these types of information. Here is a tool to go do that. So they're biased towards running tool and executing on those tools versus biased towards conversation. Now, the underlayer, one of the benefits of an LAM is because it's biased towards execution, it's still built on top of an LLM as a base layer. So it understands language really well. So when you ask the same question in 100 different ways, it still can understand this is the right tool for that answer, right? And then it has a failback to go ask a knowledge management system via RAG an answer that might be a follow-up, right? An FAQ response. But it's not trying to do that on its own. It's trying to say, hey, is there a tool that says, hey, I don't have a tool that answers this question. Let me ask this general tool, does it know the answer? And then come back to the user. The other big thing we've spent a lot of time with the LAM model is biasing it towards, I don't know, right? So it isn't trying to come up with an answer because you asked it a question. If it doesn't know, it doesn't know. It's going to say, I don't know, or I don't have the capabilities to do that, right? So those guardrails help it be strict and drive that kind of adherence that a lot of our customers are looking towards, and making sure that they're not seeing the failures, right? And overnight something goes haywire.
So you've really trained it then to, if it doesn't have a certain confidence interval, shall we say, that it's giving you the right answer or that it's doing the right things, that by default it doesn't do anything. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah. Yeah, if it can't find a tool to answer the question, it will by default just tell the user, I don't know how to do this. Or you might add steps to say, hey, bail out and go to an agent, or bail out and go to a different agentic virtual agent, right? Or orchestrate some different path that's not within this LAM execution path.
One of the things that you mentioned about LLMs is that's a kind of sycophantic nature of LLMs. Do you train the LAM against that? Or I guess, is it
Again,
the model that it's different, or how do you keep that?
The model is different because it's trained to action, right? So it's trained to the tool. So when you create a tool, or you add let's say an API call, you say, this is what this tool does, and this is how it does. This is what you do before the tool starts. This is what you do after the tool starts, right? You don't train it on, these pieces of information. You just say, these are the tools that are available to you. This is a plan of how these tools should execute. Now, as a user comes in a conversation, follow that plan. if the user asks you things like, you should change your plan, that's where the guardrails kick in. We have prompt injection prevention, those kind of capabilities all kick in to prevent that from happening, right? And then it's also memory is within context of that conversation, right? So at the end of the conversation, the memory kind of dies so that the LAM model doesn't learn from that conversation. We leave that up to the authors or the creators of the virtual agents or agentic virtual agents to be able to help train and improve them.
Got it. So that's the technical part of it.
Yeah.
We can go deeper on the technical part if we have time. But what about the kind of emotional part of it? I mean, people are kind of betting their companies and sometimes their jobs on this stuff right now. What are you hearing about people feeling comfortable sort of turning this on? And what are you thinking about from the sort of monitoring and observability side, but also the communication side, the sort of human factors associated with being comfortable turning this on?
I think the spectrum varies by industry largely, but there are some companies that are turning it on just for the sake of, I can't handle what we're getting volume wise, right? Like if you think of healthcare, it's a great industry of scheduling an appointment, right? You're calling the doctor's office. The doctor's office is then trickling down to call the insurance company. The insurance company is then going to give them a verification code if you're validated or not. Then the doctor's office will call you back to tell you, right, your appointment's been accepted or not accepted.
Right.
There's not a lot of regulation around that, right? But there's a huge value ROI savings to healthcare companies, right? If I can automate when a human calls in and says, hey, I'm looking for an appointment for, let's say, just a dentist exam, right? It gathers the information for me, such as, what is your new insurance card number, and gathering that information, and then run some agent in the back end that talks to, let's say, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and goes and figures out, hey, does Rahul have valid dental insurance? Mm-hmm. If so, come back and approve the appointment. But now that's done in real time versus what's happening today at a lot of these companies is, they will schedule an appointment and then call you back 3 days later saying, hey, your insurance isn't accepted anymore.
Right.
But now they've lost kind of that time back and forth. So trying to automate things like that, right, which are heavy process tasks, can really drive value to a lot of these companies. And we're seeing it across a couple of industries that you'd be surprised, right? Like healthcare and financial services, which are the heaviest regulated industries. We're seeing the most interest from a lot of those types of industries because they just see the inherent value of simplifying some of these processes for the end users.
Well, it's high volume stuff, but it's also stressful stuff for customers.
Yeah.
A lot of cases too, right? Like if I'm trying to talk to somebody at my bank because I really have a problem that I can't solve online, or I'm trying to talk to my insurance company because their automated process isn't working for me, or the health scheduling an MRI, whatever it is. Like those are all great examples where it's not just do I have a high volume and a relatively high value kind of task, but it's stressful for the customer if there's back and forth, if there's hold time, if there's not a sort of immediate resolution for my problem.
Exactly. And so that's really where we're seeing a lot of value, right? We have a customer that's trying to set something up for just a high volume of, did my trade go through, right? Think of an investment firm, right? That is I need that answer right away. And if I have to wait on hold and then the agent tells me it didn't go through, right, then I'm kind of stuck. I may have lost money. So they're trying to say, hey, as soon as somebody calls, have the agentic virtual agent pick up and say, are you calling about the trade? If so, this trade number has gone through. This one may not have gone through. And that is a good 10% of calls that are just coming in on a daily basis, right? Yeah. So you can start seeing the volume grow there. And then there's also sensitive things, right? Where we're working with a company where it's about servicing car loans, right? And people are calling in saying, I can't make a payment this month. Can you help me negotiate? Like, either a different date or a promise to pay, right? Two highly regulated things, but they are very process oriented, right? Gather the person's information, the circumstances, and then send it to some backend API to say, hey, Rahul has promised to make a payment on this date, because they need that for legal regulations. But from a human perspective, right, it is one of those things where sometimes people would rather talk to a robot than an agent for those kind of things. But again, a robot is only as good as the execution it can do and drive the value to it, right? Like, people will get tired talking to chatbots if they can't do anything.
They can't get the resolution. Yeah. And a lot of the examples that you've talked about sounded like really a lot of kind of deterministic steps. How much of it is the lamb following a predetermined workflow, for lack of a better term, versus it doing some reasoning to make a decision?
I think what we're seeing from customers, right, is they have a predetermined set of steps, but you have to be able to reason between which step to take when.
Okay.
Right? So they're jumping around based off the information either passed in or gathered in real time, right? So they're not going through step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Like, so if you imagine, like, the most complicated use case we've been talking about in our line has been applying for a mortgage, right? Like, step 1 is getting a pre-approval. Step 2 is going to go find a house. Step 3 is going through, and there's a lot of kind of things that go between that. And that's where our LAM can really help, right? Like, if you have one LAM for pre-approval, it can go figure out, did I get all the information I need? Is a pre-approval already done? Do I have to renew the pre-approval? It starts making some of those reasoning decisions and then proactively talking to the end user, right? Hey, are you back for, I see your pre-approval just expired. Are you back to renew it because you haven't found a house? Or did you find a house and you're ready to make an offer, right? And trying to understand where the person is in that journey plan.
Yeah. Okay. So it's reasoning sort of between the steps, but a lot of things I probably want to have as a predetermined workflow.
Think of it as reasoning between the tools that are available to it, right? It's chaining those tools together to reason how to get from step A to step B.
Got it. Okay. So as I think about how I manage these different agents, how is that changing the conversations that you're having with customers about what a contact center manager looks like and kind of what tools you're providing to them to be able to really understand what's happening, be able to manage, monitor, that sort of thing?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? It's really, how do I manage some of the auditability pieces of it? What is happening? What does the conversation look like? The other piece, tools we're giving our customers, is how do I test this, right? How do I make sure that it can run and function with a large volume of different variants without just, spot checking or smoke testing that, customers have been used to in deterministic flows. So giving them tools that do that. And then the third piece is, if you've ever done any prompting on, ChatGPT and everything else, you know how complicated it can get. So how do we give them tools to critique and audit and improve their agentic virtual agents easily, right? So those are kind of the three: one around authoring, right, building your agentic virtual agent; one around testing how well it performs; and then how well is it in the wild. Those are kind of the three buckets I would say we're spending on tooling. From a human perspective, right, it could be one person or it could be three people. It really varies by organizations, but what we're seeing with a lot of our customers is it's normally one or two people that are kind of running through all of it together, because they go hand in hand, right? If you realize that it's responding with the wrong answers, you got to go figure out why it's doing that, what's causing those kind of wrong answers.
And for customers who are worried about the sort of runaway AI, like we talked about earlier, is there a kill switch, or there kind of built-in monitoring capabilities where it says if a particular agent reaches a certain threshold of things that doesn't that looks like they're anomalous in some way, that it sort of shuts it down or
Not
puts it on pause until somebody has a chance to look at it?
not quite, right? One of the things, we work in an industry where volume can explode, right?
Right.
Because something went wrong, right? Like back in the day when I worked at a different company where they hosted the World Cup online and one of the games went out and they had, I think, 30x their normal volume. So like trying to turn something off because it's taking more calls or exploding volume wise probably isn't the right plan of attack for our customers. So what we give them are these tools that are constantly running and monitoring if they want them to continuously audit the agentic virtual agent. So you could run 10, 20 conversations every day through it to make sure it's not moving or changing in any direction, right? But again, when the way we've designed it is it's somewhat stateless, right? So it's not rebuilding its logic all of a sudden, right? Just per user. It's not learning from each usage,
Right. Okay.
ChatGPT is, and then continuing to rebuild and improve. It's kind of a set it first, then you can improve it as a end user, right, with a human in the middle, but it won't automatically start learning and improving to prevent that runaway concept.
Okay. No, that makes sense. One of the things that we've been hearing a lot about, Rahul, is particularly in the CCaaS space, is sort of the SaaS apocalypse and the idea that seats are going away. And we did some recent research and found that 19% of CX managers, whether it's contact center or kind of broader CRM, 19% said they reduced headcount in 2025 because of AI, and 22% said they plan to in 2026 because of AI. So roughly 41% of the contact center / CRM world is reducing the number of employees that they have, sort of responding to customer concerns. That means there's still a healthy number that aren't. But I'm curious if that's in line sort of with what you're seeing for customers and how much of it is reducing headcount versus not having to fill seats that turn over versus really being able to move contact center folks onto higher level proactive stuff.
I think what we're seeing, at least in the numbers, is it's all the above, right? A lot of organizations that have highly deployed AI are starting to plateau on number of seats, but their conversation volume is still continuing to grow at a 10% to 20% growth rate, right? But they're not adding more seats, yet they're still maintaining the same HT and things like that because AI is helping in that case. We haven't seen any of the contact centers just remove roles because of AI, right? But what we've seen them do is basically up level some of those roles, right? Having more level 2 versus level 1 agents type of a thing. And then we're also seeing kind of that partnership with AI, right? Across the board between employees and, yes, agentic virtual agents is one piece to try to prevent calls from going to humans, but then you have Copilot kind of assisting them on the other side. So when it does drop out of the agentic virtual agent, there's still value to that call for the agent to be able to see a summary in real time, be able to get those same kind of capabilities in real time, and have AI helping that agent in real time by performing tasks and things like that. So I think what we are seeing is our usage of AI is growing up, and some customers are staying flat, some are growing, right, volume wise. So they're kind of growing both ends of the spectrum now.
But also being able to up level what their agents are doing and hopefully getting them into more promising opportunities than the day-to-day. Perfect. Well, we only have a few minutes left, so that means it's crunch time.
Sure.
This is the part where normally Patrick is here with his questions, but he and I spoke yesterday, and we nailed a couple for you,
Okay.
that I think are different from the ones we had you answer the last time you were on. So anyway, what is your favorite sound?
My favorite sound. I have little kids, so it's normally when the baby sleep music starts, and you know that they're headed to sleep.
Quiet time, quiet time. No, I get it. That makes a lot of sense. Our house is pretty quiet. My sister has 3 kids, and her house is relatively very loud compared to mine. So I definitely get that.
It's like during the week when they're at school and stuff, you could hear a pin drop in our house. As soon as they come in, it's just screaming. And so when you hear, my little one still uses some sleep music to fall asleep. When you hear the lullabies start, it's like,
yes,
it's happening.
A few hours of peace. A few hours of peace. That's great. What is the word you most overuse?
The word I most overuse. Could I do a phrase?
Sure.
AI isn't going to solve all the world's problems.
I'm not sure that is overused. I think that's probably a good one.
I use it a lot with customers, right? Like come in and just say AI is going to solve it, and you still got to build it and configure it. So that's a phrase I use a lot.
AI is not going to solve all the world's problems. It's kind of big to fit on a T-shirt, but I think it's maybe a good one. Okay, and finally, where's your happy place?
I would say at home. Even though I say my kids are terrorists, they keep me young.
little Stockholm syndrome there.
I do enjoy just they have all their things, but then they are homebodies as well. So I do enjoy just being home with them. Like yesterday, it was probably the worst Memorial Day weather-wise. It was raining the whole day, and they're just playing by themselves in the basement for a good half of the day before they lost it. But it was just nice and like watching them entertain themselves with all the stuff that they have.
Got it. Excellent. A happy place. Rahul's happy place is at home. I like that.
I travel a lot, so being home is just the place to be.
I get you. Absolutely.
How about yourself?
Yeah, a happy place for me is the beach.
Yeah.
Even if it's raining. But I would say home is definitely a strong number 2, especially given the amount of time we all spend on the road these days, it seems like. Anyway, I think that's a great place to wrap it up for today. Rahul, thank you so much for joining and sharing your thoughts and insights. I think the lamb piece is so interesting, and one that we're just starting to kind of scratch the surface on how it delivers value for customers. So appreciate you coming out to talk about it.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.